Welcome to another edition of the Voice of Palestine, July 17, 2014, and I'm your co-host, Hanna Khawas. This week we are interviewing Samah Sabawi, a playwright, poet, political analyst, and human rights advocate. A Palestinian from Gaza, she has written and produced several critically acclaimed plays, as well as having co-authored the book Journey to Peace in Palestine. She previously lived in Canada and now lives in Australia, and we reached her there to talk about the horrific situation in Gaza and Palestine, global solidarity activities, as well as her upcoming play, Tales of a City by the Sea. Good morning to you, Samah, and welcome to the Voice of Palestine.
Good morning.
What strikes me about your poetry, to start with, let's go to poetry because I love poetry. It goes directly to the heart, and from the heart. You did a few poems. Could you tell us about your poetry first, and also to introduce our listeners to yourself, why you are active in the solidarity movement, and your background and things like that?
My background is born in Gaza, and soon after my birth, becoming one of the millions of Palestinian exiles who have been uprooted from their ancestral land. I grew up in many different places, spent most of my life between Canada and Australia. And I think what motivates me is the sense that I am privileged only because I got lucky. And if it weren't for a twist of fate, if it weren't for the fact that my father was able to leave the refugee camp when he did in Jordan when we were young, that my fate could have been similar to the fate of many of my Palestinian brothers and sisters who are until this day living in terrible conditions in refugee camps or under occupation without having any of their basic human rights. So I think having that connection makes it difficult for you to turn your eyes away from the atrocities that are being committed against the Palestinian people. And that same thing is what really drives my poetry as well, and my writing, and really everything I do with that in mind, with the thought that there are people who are less fortunate than me, and that I need to use the privilege that I have of having become a citizen of Western nations and having my democratic rights and my freedom of speech, that I need to use this privilege to try to carry their voice to the world. You have quite few actually poems. Could you tell us a bit, how did you start the poetry, and what motivated you, and did it come to you just, because some people, like if I want to write poetry, forget it. I might write articles, but not poetry. So is it, it comes as an inspiration, or how you do it, I know the Arabic poetry is more difficult than the English, but, could you tell us in your case how did it come to you? It's a kind of a funny story. When we came to Australia, I was about 11 years old at the time, and I wanted not just to speak the language. I'm the daughter of a poet. My father, Samah Sabawi, is an incredible poet and a novelist and a writer. And so I always grew up with poetry around our house and, wherever I went. But when we came here and I was just 11, I wanted not just to speak the language, I wanted to be able to express myself. And, I was starting my teen years of wanting to have that self-expression. So to strengthen my English, I decided to translate from Arabic into English Mahmoud Darwish's poetry book that we had in our library. Mm-hmm. And that was a very grueling exercise. It took me 6 months of just trying to translate, and I think that was a very important part of the process of me, myself, becoming able to express myself better in English. And so after that, I just started to write my own dribbles. But I never thought of myself as a poet. I think my poetry, or the pieces that I write, are more about an expression that comes from a very deep place from inside of me, and it just I have no choice but to write it. To let it out, to write it down. It's not something that I think about. I don't say I'm going to write a poem today and I sit down and I start writing it. It usually comes from a very strong experience that I've had, or something that has impacted me. And that's why most of my poetry is about Palestine and Gaza, and a lot of it was written during Cast-led, the war on Gaza, in 2008.
I wanted to ask you, before we go further, you translated that book. Did you ever publish it?
No. I mean, that's an 11-year-old translation of Mahmoud Darwish. I don't think Mahmoud Darwish would have appreciated it. No. But it was a good exercise. It was a very good exercise.
Because he has lots of translations, but that's good. Okay, so if you don't mind, but just tell us in general about some of your poems, or mention some of them if you don't mind. I wrote several during Cast-led and then in the years after as well. And it's when you're running out of words to say. I write political analysis pieces, very academic pieces. I can talk about the conflict in clear terms. I can talk about the root cause of the problem. But when you're looking on your screen, on your television screen, and you're seeing your home city being bombed so ruthlessly, and you're seeing children, and you're seeing people dying, and then that analytical process sometimes is not enough to express what is happening in front of you, and that's when poetry really kicks in, and it gives me an outlet. It gives me a chance to put into words what is a very difficult situation to describe. So you're just letting your feelings and your emotions speak. And that's what happened with my poetry that I've written during Cast-led. Now, since then, I've put together the poems into a play that I'm producing this year, Tales of a City by the Sea. And the play itself also captures Cast-led. It's about a Palestinian love story that takes place in that environment under the falling bombs. Our main characters, they fall in love in August 2008, and then their love story happens through the Cast-led assault on Gaza, the Israeli assault on Gaza. And so, I'm finding a place for this poetry to actually tell the story of the people that I love and that I'm connected to in Palestine and especially in Gaza.
I'm also putting some of this poetry right now. I'm working with Ramzi Baroud and Jihan Serso, and we're working on a poetry book that should be out hopefully by the end of the year.
Oh, good.
That encapsulates all of this poetry.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. I want to go to the situation in Gaza, and maybe we could come back to your works at the end of the show. But it seems the situation is really horrific, and it's getting worse. They killed another 3 children today, yesterday 4, so and in addition to 35, so over 40 children being slaughtered in cold blood. Could you tell us, how do you feel when you hear, for example, Mr. Byrd, our foreign minister here in Canada, or Mr. Harper, or your prime minister, who recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, when they say there is no moral equivalent between the Israelis and Palestinians, it really shows their racist venom that they project into what's happening in Palestine, Israel. What do you think?
I think it does show you really have to be racist, and you really have to have dehumanized the Palestinian people to a level where you can look at dead children and say, well, they had to go. That's okay. Israel had a right to defend itself. Mm-hmm. And that whole argument of Israel having the right to defend itself is really nothing more than sound bites that these guys are repeating on the airwaves over and over again. Whereas if you're looking at international law, it is very clear that what Israel is doing cannot be put in the context of self-defense, because it is actually trying to so-called defend itself against the people that it has occupied for decades and has deprived them of their basic human rights for decades, and it has besieged them, and it has failed to live up to its responsibility towards them as an occupying power under the Fourth Geneva Convention. The Palestinians have a right to defend themselves. The Palestinians are an occupied people. They're fighting an occupation that has stripped them of their basic human rights and dignities. They're fighting for their survival. They are facing an existential threat. And yet when you're looking at the rhetoric that comes from the Canadian government and the Australian government, you really have to kind of scratch your head and you say, what the hell are they talking about? Mm-hmm. Everything is twisted around. So instead of acknowledging that the Palestinians have been facing ethnic cleansing and have been undergoing a process of ethnic cleansing since 1948, which still continues today in Jerusalem, it continues in the West Bank and Hebron, in different places. Mm-hmm. It still continues.
In 48.
And then they twist it around and they say Israel is fighting an existential threat. The only person who's fighting an existential threat right now is the Palestinian, who is being treated as nothing more than excess humanity and inconvenience in Israel's way toward Israel's great expansion project and drive for power. The Palestinian is by virtue of being born, is considered a threat to the state of Israel. By virtue of being born, because a Palestinian is not Jewish and Israel is trying to build and to maintain and to empower a state that defines itself as a Jewish state.
Although, I'm not sure what's happening in Australia, but there is really the public opinion here clearly doesn't agree with the Canadian public opinion doesn't agree with the government. Or in spite of that, all the 3 parties are defending Israel, including the NDP, which is a really outrageous and sacrilege. But, the movement, it's encouraging that the movement is growing. Could you tell us about Australia? I just...
it's the same thing in Australia. The general public, those who know what's going on, are absolutely supportive of the Palestinian people's struggle for freedom, human rights, and dignity.
Yeah.
The majority of Australians, when polled a few years ago on the Palestinian statehood bid, were in favor of the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian statehood. People, the average person, the average human being, is not able to stomach the wanton death and destruction on a trapped civilian population. That is what's going on in Gaza. We have a trapped civilian population. And the fourth strongest army in the world, using sophisticated weapons. They're dropping over Gaza. 1,500 tons of bombs have been dropped in the past week. And when you do the math, Gaza is 45 kilometers long and 15 wide. That's about 2.5 tons of bombs per square kilometer in what is described as the world's most densely populated area. And so what Israel is doing, the average citizen, the average Australian citizen, the average Canadian citizen, the average human being cannot condone Israel's behavior, cannot take the side of Israel when it's committing such obvious massacres against a people it has imprisoned and not allowed to run away. And I was talking to relatives yesterday, and they were saying, we just want to get out of here. But where do we go? Where do we go? There's bombs falling everywhere, and Egypt has closed its borders, and Israel has closed its borders, and we have no place to go.
That's right. It's like bombing the hell of them while they are trapped, and But the international solidarity. I just posted this morning about the protest in Cape Town in South Africa, and they reported that 40,000 joined the protest against Israel, and some of the descriptions say Palestinian flag waved and banners with messages such as Israel is a racist apartheid regime, we're raised above the sea of people. And this is from the South Africa. It's significant, the people who really know what apartheid is. Here they're still disputing whether Israel is an apartheid state in our media and government establishment in Canada, and I'm sure in Australia is the same, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, this massive popular support at the grassroots level is growing, and it's growing fast. And we've seen this in protests, not just in South Africa. There's a lot of protests being organized. England had tens of thousands turn up to its protest. We've had several thousand protesting here in Melbourne and in Sydney, and we're expecting an even larger crowd on Saturday. I think a lot of people have had enough of Israel's project in the Middle East, its expansional project, and they've had enough of seeing this go on and on and on without any end. People who are so concerned about stopping the Hamas rockets, like our government here, both my governments, I'm both Canadian and Australian. If they are so concerned about stopping the Hamas rockets, what are the political solutions that they're putting on the table that would be acceptable to the Palestinian people? Hamas's conditions for the ceasefire are really minimalist conditions for survival for the people of Gaza. Opening the borders is one of them. And that's a very important one. Having access to their water so that they can start doing trade again, and they can see loved ones and visit families, and these are minimal requirements. In the absence of our government putting down political solutions to the problem that is happening to the conflict between the Palestinians and Israelis, and I'm talking political solutions that are grounded in international law and in humanitarian, in human rights. If they're not able to offer that, then they cannot say that they want the rockets to stop, because what they're doing is they are ensuring that the violence continues for a very long time. And we need political solutions that work, and we need these political solutions as soon as possible. But unfortunately, the governments of the world are not moving yet, and that's why it's so good and so important to see the people of the world moving at the grassroots level. Because we need to lead so that our governments can follow.
Yeah, and it's ironic, the purpose of their siege supposedly to stop the rockets and the military supplies to go in, but, as we've seen recently, they haven't succeeded in that. They only succeeded in starving the people of Gaza.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And people are so tired there. Every time they build something beautiful, Israel destroys it. Every time, they think that they're going to get some breathing room, something happens and they can't plan ahead. They don't have electricity. They don't have water. They don't have basic supplies. They don't have freedom. They don't have a future to look forward to. And we need to hear their voices.
Yeah.
Even those who say that they are friends of Israel. If you're a friend of Israel and you're really concerned about stopping these rockets, what are you doing to ensure that there is a fair and just political solution on the table? And what are you doing?
Yeah, and why target civilian population of Gaza?
Absolutely. How can you speak out against the rockets if you're not speaking out against the 1,500 tons of bombs that have been dropped on civilians? And Israel is very open about this. I mean, their whole roof-knocking policy, which shows that they are deliberately targeting Palestinian homes for destruction. And they're open about it.
And according to
this is not collateral damage.
No.
The Wafat hospital, which they destroyed this morning,
that's true,
is the only rehabilitation center in Gaza. And they've been flying their planes over it for days. They've issued several warnings that they're going to destroy it. International solidarity, people went into the hospital hoping that would stop them from the destruction. But, I woke up this morning and there was the news that, Israel has destroyed the Al-Wafa hospital. They're destroying mosques, they're destroying clinics, they destroyed a home for the disabled people, they destroyed restaurants. And then they talk about moral equivalency. I mean, really?
It's really a joke. It hurts too, when you hear them talk about morality. They don't know what the meaning is really. But So we hoping we'll get someone from Gaza about what you said, the Shifa hospital, the destruction from ISM people, and we're gonna try to set something next week, hopefully, or the upcoming days about that, because it's important to show what they are really doing in Gaza from eyewitness stand. And according to the UN, 80% of the casualties are civilians, in this vicious attack. So, I guess we think, also, like you said, this Saturday you're having demos, and we're having one here also and what's really disturbing that the media, we did it in front of CBC last Saturday, and not a word they mentioned about it, although there was over 500 people in the demo. And for Canada to see 500, the Sun, for example, reported 50, the same day there was 50 people demonstrating about something. They reported that, but they ignored 500, which is really maddening, and shows the the complicity of the media and the government with Israeli war crimes. So I'd like to go back to the tales of a city by the sea. I believe, could you tell us when you're going to do the play and where and etc. And maybe by the end, if you could read us a poem. I have in mind the poem poem words, and I tell you why. I'd like to hear it from you. But it's up to you if you know. But back to the first question. So I'm trying to put too many things together.
So you want me to talk about Tales?
Yeah, about Tales, yeah, and where you're going to show it and where.
Yeah. Tales of a City by the Sea is a play I wrote. Again, it tells a love story between Rami, who is a Palestinian doctor, who comes to Gaza. He was born in the U.S. to Palestinian parents, and he comes to Gaza in 2008 on the first Free Gaza boat that breaks the siege. And he falls in love in Gaza with Jumana, who is a Palestinian blogger who lives in Shelter refugee camp. And the play explores their love story. It explores the relationship between Palestinians in Gaza and in Palestine, and Palestinians who were born and raised in diaspora. So it talks about the challenges, the cultural differences, and it also talks about trying to have a normal life, trying to have a love story, trying to get engaged, trying to get married, against the backdrop of the political situation in Gaza. So we go from the arrival of the Free Gaza boats in 2008 to the war on Gaza in 2008. And I won't give too much away, but the story tells, it's not just about Jumana and Rami, but there's another couple in there as well. So it tries to tell Gazan stories and Palestinian stories through the lives of these lovebirds. The play will be produced here in Australia by La Mama Theatre in Melbourne. And it is partly funded by Vic Arts Victoria and by private donors as well. We're set to go on November 11th, and we were hoping originally that we would be able to produce the play on 3 different stages in Gaza, in the West Bank, and in Melbourne at the same time. And so we were raising funds for the Gaza and the West Bank productions. Right now it's difficult really to talk about whether or not we're going to be able to reach our target, whether or not we will be able to perform the play, at least in Gaza, given the current circumstances. So it's a very lucid situation. And it's been very difficult to watch our partners in Gaza, the team, the Tales of a City by the Sea team over there, having to live through the atrocities that the play was written about, and we were hoping would never happen again. We wish them well, we wish them safety, we wish them freedom, we wish them strength and resilience, and I hope one day I can write a love story about Gaza that will not have anything to do with war in it.
And are you thinking of bringing it to Canada too, or?
I would love to bring it to Canada. It's actually going to be published in Canada next year in an anthology, and so I might come for the book tour if we have one. I don't know what the plan is with my publisher, with our publisher there right now.
There is a progressive theater here in Vancouver. We could talk to them.
I can send you the script if you want. Run it by them.
Sure, I will. Just please, and they are very sympathetic. They did lots of good work here in Vancouver. So if you're going to do it in Montreal and Toronto, may as well try to do it here too, which will be great. Please send me the script and we'll take it from there. I hope all the success, because it's important to give the Palestinian narrative, because we shouldn't expect the media to do that for us. You have a poem called Words, isn't it?
That's right.
I stand dispossessed, and could you tell us a bit about it and what motivated you to write it?
Words was motivated by It was inspired by conversations that I had over and over and over and over again by people who were trying to give me tips, mostly liberal Zionists, I have to be honest.
Yeah.
But as well as media personnel and people who we call normalizers, who wanna push for dialogue and without really understanding how much we lose when we change our language and we water it down. And so it was inspired by many years of working with the media and of talking to people who kept telling me that, you have to change the language so that it can open doors and, avoid using some words and, these words are too strong. Try to water them down. So that's what motivated the poem.
Good, yeah. And, it hit a nerve with me because, including, not forget about the half Zionists, but even the left, they want to tell you what to say to, and we've been facing this problem since we started the solidarity work. And I love the way you put it, is it possible that you read it for us at the end of the show?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sure. Go ahead. You have it on you?
I'm just trying to find it, actually.
Okay, sure. We could chat a bit till you find it, but that'll be great. And
all right, so here's the poem.
Okay, go for it.
I stand dispossessed. No Congress behind me. No statesmen surround me. No lobby to breathe hellfire. No media eager to appease. No three-ring circus of intellectual jesters, academic clowns, and policy experts who truly do not see the big elephant in the tent. No legal acrobats dance for me on a thin robe of decency. No politicians juggle oppression and human rights on my behalf. No trips to boost careers for MPs and their wives. No propaganda movies. No radio broadcasts. No myths. No lies. No Hasbroites. No army. No country. Not even one leader to believe in. All I have are my words to tell my story, my voice to demand justice. And you're telling me my language is too strong. You, my friend, may perfect the skill of delusion, the talent of denial. You may express regret and lament and cry tears of indignation and insist you're on my side, but without naming the crimes they commit, without naming ethnic cleansing and apartheid, your words ring hollow. So I will hold on to my words. I use them sparingly. I utter one word, and a house is resurrected from memory on a hill in Palestine. I utter another, and I'm in a courtyard under a sycamore tree. And another, and the scent of jasmine fills the air. Words lift me up from despair and take me home. Words disarm tyrants, bring down empires, and reveal all the oppressors wish to conceal. Humanity.
Yeah.
I stand dispossessed of everything but my words. They are words of truth, of fire and steel. I use them deliberately, not to incite hatred, not to frighten, but to lighten up this darkness that tore me into 11 million pieces and scattered me across the earth. Words tell my story. Nakba, forced exile, ethnic cleansing, apartheid. Words carefully chosen, purposely uttered. These are the words that lay the foundation of the language of my liberation.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. We know what's good for us, and we know what's best for us. So we appreciate any support and solidarity, but for God's sake, we have the brains to lead our own struggle, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's important that that people can hear what we have to say, and our voices are not unanimous. We are very diverse. We're not homogenous. But when we're thinking, our thinking process needs to be done without having to take into consideration everybody else's interests in the world. It's incredible how many people, and that's really what's affected the conflict as well. It's how many other people are involved.
And they jump on the bandwagon to serve their own interests rather than the Palestinian people. And we faced it with the Arab official positions too. But
and that's really the beautiful thing about the boycott movement too, is because it does put the Palestinian civil society in the lead.
Yeah, that's it.
And it does highlight what it is exactly that Palestinians agree on. I mean, we disagree on many things. We're factionalized. We're we're like any other society. We have people who are secular, people who are religious, etc. But there are three things that you will get agreement on, no matter which Palestinian in the world you're talking to, and that's what the boycott movement does. It highlights
the three
essentials.
The three principles.
And the occupation, right of return, and equality for the Palestinians who are citizens of the State of Israel.
No, I agree totally, and I think it's important that we lead our own struggle, and we are appreciative of all the support we get, and this is reflective with the international solidarity movement. Actually, it's in their basis of unity where they say it's Palestinian-led, but the majority of people who go with the international solidarity, the ISM, are from all over the world. So I just want to give you a last chance to address our listeners, Samah, and what can they do? You mentioned the BDS, which is a powerful weapon really in our hands, and it is a non-violent weapon really. But could you tell us under these circumstances what people can do with this assault on Gaza?
I think, we have to always be sure that we're offering enough support to the people of Gaza. We're telling their stories to as many people as possible. The media is not doing a good job of doing that. So we need to be able to convey what is really happening in Gaza to the world, and we need to be able to explain what is it that the people in Gaza need. What are their most important and essential requirements right now for them to survive this. We need to write letters to our government. We need to try to write letters to the media as much as possible. Try to get op-eds published, although I haven't had much of luck doing that in Australian newspapers. But keep on trying. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your friends. Talk to your colleagues, and protest, and raise awareness as much as possible. And always boycott. We've got to make Israel held to account for the crimes that it commits, and the least we can do is not invest in Israeli atrocities.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Samah, and really it was a pleasure talking to you. Keep up the good work, and we hope to see you here in Canada, and more specifically in Vancouver. But feel free to contact us whenever you have any project, because it's all in the service of our people and the struggle of the Palestinian people that lasted over 100 years against the Zionist project. We thank you again for being with us.
Thank you so much, Hannah.
And that was Hannah Kawas talking with Samah Sabawi from Australia. And with that, we conclude another edition of The Voice of Palestine. Please check out our website, voiceofpalestine.ca, where we have archives for all of our shows for the last 10 years. Thanks for tuning in. Palestine will be free.